Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Lucas.
and we are two aspiring filmmakers making unnecessary commentary on famous movies.
Each week, we will randomly select a film to analyze, discuss, and review.
We will select the film at the end of each podcast, so you will have ample time to watch the movie before the next episode.
We are slightly qualified film students. Hello everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode.
Welcome to my
of Slightly
favorite
Qualified.
episode yet.
Yes, we are jumping into the film that Ben has been hoping for ever since we started spinning the wheel, and he got it with only 14
Aquatic.
movies. So good job.
Yeah,
we got the Life Aquatic.
This is my favorite film, undisputed of all time, and it was my intro into Wes Anderson, the first Wes Anderson film I ever saw. Actually, I might have seen the Fantastic Mr. Fox before this.
See, I'm going to put on my psychology cap here and say that is the reason why this is your favorite Wes Anderson film. Because for me, this was my first time watching this film. I mean, I'd seen bits and pieces of it. I'd actually seen a fair bit of this film, but I've never actually watched it from start to finish. I think when you go into this film already having seen most of Wes Anderson's work, it's just not as impressive, I guess, on a technical standpoint, because I don't know, it's just like he hasn't fully formed his style in this film yet, technically speaking. And it's like,
yeah, I mean, I would argue, so like, to me, like, what you see in Grand Budapest Hotel with, like, crazy aspect ratios and that kind of stuff, to me, like, that doesn't necessarily encapsulate his whole style. Like, even this film, technically speaking, is very similar to the Darjeeling Limited. So really, if we're talking, like, weird aspect ratios and, like, doing like old school stuff like that as being Wes Anderson style, then that really only started with like Moonrise Kingdom and Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, but
because I mean, and Royal Tenenbaums too is pretty.
Yeah, I would even
Wes
say
Anderson,
Rushmore
like,
is more like stylized. I mean, this film gets more stylized as it goes along. I felt like the first half of it wasn't fully there, and then as the film went along, it started to feel a lot more like a Wes Anderson film. But at the start, there was like so much handheld, lots of like, just almost simplistic filmmaking, and I was waiting for it, and it did pick up, but I don't know, I just didn't find it as impressive. But I do understand if you went into this as your first intro to Wes Anderson, it's unlike any film, obviously, that you'd probably have seen before.
Yeah.
So that's why it's one of those like for me, Fantastic Mr. Fox, I guess, was my first Wes Anderson film, but I don't remember it that well. I think Moonrise Kingdom was my first Wes Anderson film. And
Moonrise Kingdom is my least favorite Wes Anderson
I know
film.
It is, and I haven't seen Moonrise Kingdom. I haven't seen Moonrise Kingdom since the first time I watched it, but I mean, I think that's why I do have a sweet spot for it, because it was my first intro to Wes Anderson. Okay.
But here, I got the plot summary pulled up.
Nice.
While working on a documentary, Steve Zissou's partner gets killed under mysterious circumstances by a shark. Steve and his crew set off on an expedition to hunt it down. Yeah, so that's kind of like the events of the film, like what they're doing. But this film is really about so much more than just revenge on a shark that killed his friend.
Yeah, like the actual concept of getting revenge on the shark kind of gets lost halfway through the film when the film starts focusing more on like the pirates and all of that element, and then the shark at the end is more of like a callback, which I liked quite a bit, because I liked that it wasn't just like a straightforward focus on one objective kind of thing.
I mean, this film almost, to me, is like a character study of Steve Zissou, and the shark kind of sets him up to go off on one last adventure, but really the purpose of that is just for him to connect with his son supposedly. I mean, it's not actually his son, but his basically just for him to have a chance at being a father. And I think it just puts a lot of things in perspective for his character. And it's just a really great story, in my opinion. It's just a great film that's about a lot. It's even about documentary filmmaking and Jacques Cousteau, all that stuff. And it's just funny. There's some action. There's some tear-jerking scenes. Like, to me, this is a great all-around film. And it's not even that Wes Anderson-y, so I think it's pretty easy to get into and watch.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's hop into some standout scenes here.
What was your standout scene? I'm curious.
Okay. See, like, what do I choose? Because I feel like the swarming of, like, the hotel, like going to save Bill, is, like, a very obvious choice.
The Ping Island rescue scene is my standout scene, and I'll talk about it
because,
in a second, but I'm interested for you.
Well, no, like, I think that is the standout scene. I just think it's kind of too obvious to choose, because it's, like, technically speaking, it's the best shot sequence, in my opinion, and it's the funniest sequence, in my opinion. But I'm gonna choose.
If you can choose it, I'll pick a different one. You can choose it.
I got other scenes I can pick from. So I think that
I got it.
Other scene for me is when the pirates take over the ship. Not the actual fighting of the pirates, but just when they actually take over the ship. I loved how that all played out. The guy just playing Space Odyssey on his guitar, them throwing up the ladder, coming on board.
Yeah.
And then just Klaus getting taken by them and going to get Bill Murray out of the sauna. It's just a really funny scene in a very intense circumstance, and that's kind of the perfect way to look at Wes Anderson films. It's taking very dark themes and very intense situations and finding this very dry humor in it.
Yeah, I also think that the Ping Island rescue scene is a favorite of mine, but I think I'm just gonna go with another pretty obvious choice, which is when they discover the jaguar shark in the submarine.
I mean, yeah.
It gets me to cry every time. I just love. First of all, I love the song choice. It's a really great song, and I get that the CGI is pretty bad.
But
to be honest, now that I've seen it a few times, I really don't care
the CGI
that much about
I
the CGI.
didn't care because it's not meant to be CGI. It's meant to be
exactly.
It's kind of like Scott Pilgrim versus the World. It's one of those films that you have to go into it and just accept the world you're in. It's not about realism by any means. Because looking at all these creatures,
I thought you were actually gonna get mad at it for the CGI.
No,
so
I don't.
I'm kind of glad that you.
I don't care because that's the concept of the film. I mean, if they had real looking animals from the start and then all of a sudden had this weird CGI shark at the end, then maybe I would have been mad. But they set it up from the start with the seahorse. That's what the animals look like in the film, and I mean, by setting that up at the start, if you accept it, then it's perfectly fine to do that because it just adds a fantastical element to the film. I didn't mind that one bit.
Yeah, I also just think that scene in particular is beautifully written by Sir Noah Baumbach himself and Wes Anderson. It's just a beautiful scene, and one of the best scenes. One of my favorite scenes of any movie, just in its entirety. I love it.
I'm gonna be honest.
Necessarily,
I wish they had ended on that scene. I get it. That's the.
I mean,
the
to
scene
me, the premiere.
Nice.
To me, the premiere is a outro credits. It's not a real scene.
Yeah, but I feel it would have been so impactful. I really shouldn't be talking about this here. I should be talking about this in the ending. But I really think it would have been so impactful to just end with them, like, staring at the shark and, like, him crying. It would have been such a, like, boom ending.
Yeah. Fair enough, but I love the outro credits, so I don't mind it. Because it's, like, my favorite David Bowie song. And just the whole cast running around and walking in slow motion. I like that.
Fair enough.
But I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my standout scene.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, let's move on to some audience questions. We got a few this time, I think.
Yeah. Well, first question is from Ben's father.
Ooh. Nice.
It's not a very deep question, I will say, but the question is, the question is, was this Wes Anderson's first film that tampered into fantasy? I'm gonna let you answer this because I am not fully immersed in the Wes Anderson filmography.
I mean, like, I guess, I think Rushmore is pretty. I wouldn't say any of Wes's films before it are, like, realism. Especially Bottle Rocket. Like, Bottle Rocket is pretty much a spoof on bank robbery movies. But, I mean, the Royal Tenenbaums, Rushmore, Bottle Rocket, they're all fairly set in reality. I would say that this is definitely. I wouldn't necessarily make the claim that, like, it's his first venture out of realism or anything, because I think all his films definitely had a sort of fairy tale aesthetic, at least somewhat, before this. But yeah, I think that this is his most, at that point, this was his fourth film. I think, yeah, it was his first kind of dabble into that. And then it took him a bit with Darjeeling Limited to kind of get back into the fantasy genre.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I think he's always kind of had a fantastical element to every film he does. But I'd say this is definitely the most... That element is the most present in this film at that point.
Yeah, I mean, Wes Anderson films all have, like, a very surreal feel to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that answers the question. Moving on to our... next question. Let's see. We have, why do you think Wes Anderson films are so popular? Can you think of another director that has such an obsessed style? I guess when they say obsessed, like a style that they stick with every film they've done. I guess that makes sense.
I mean, as to why I think Wes Anderson is so popular, I just feel like his style of film is very refreshing in a lot of ways, to just a wide audience, because it doesn't take itself seriously, and it's like an adventure film, but it's not written for kids, you know. It's like as he says, and, you know, as is widely says, it's like a adult fairy tale. And honestly, I think that's why he's so popular, because his style is just so appealing to a very wide audience, just because of the nature of his films. And as for having, like, a very stylized look or feel to all your films, I mean, I would even argue, like, Christopher Nolan or someone of that nature has a very, has a style that is present in a lot of their films.
Well, I think a big one is Quentin
even
Tarantino.
Yeah.
Has such a very
I don't know. I think
style.
Christopher Nolan has a pretty recognizable style.
Yeah, he does.
That's pretty present. Like, obviously, sometimes he's not doing sci-fi. You know, he's doing Dunkirk, but I think he has a very noticeable style in a lot of the films that he does.
Excluding, like, his first couple, Insomnia and Memento. I think afterwards they just have very big budget, epic feel to all of his films. Yeah,
and obviously, like, Inception, Interstellar, Tenet, they're all very kind of mind-boggling sci-fi adventures. I mean, I would even argue that Dark Knight bears a lot of resemblance to those films. And even Memento. I mean, like, Memento is, like, kind of the oddball, but I feel like it definitely has elements.
Totally, with
like
the,
you could see, it's like the budding. Yeah, it's like the budding of.
It's just more indie. That's the only difference, really.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. He just didn't have the budget, but he had the ideas.
And Memento is just love Memento.
A great film.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there you go. There's your answer. I think that makes sense. I think that the main reason people like Wes Anderson is just because it's just, either they really get his comedy, which, his comedy isn't for everyone, but people who get it are going to love it because there aren't a lot of films with such dry humor. And yeah, like anyone who's into film, just they tend to really be attracted to his style just because of how stylistic it is. I like Wes Anderson. I don't love his vibe, but I respect it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what my argument is. I guess I just don't I prefer to be immersed in a film instead of know that I'm watching a film, which is like the big thing with Wes Anderson films is that when you watch it, it's like, you're watching a movie because of how it's framed, because of, it's filmed to make the audience aware that they're watching a movie. Whereas, I prefer more realism kind of films. But that's just a preference. I still insanely have so much respect for Wes Anderson and what he's been able to create. But yeah, I think that answers the question. Okay, let's move on. Next question is, can you see Wes Anderson's influences in other contemporary films? Or do you think that people are nervous to mimic such a personal and well-documented style?
I mean, I definitely think that a lot of directors are, like, inspired or, are big fans of Anderson, but I don't necessarily know if I would go so far. Like, I don't think his style has really been replicated by directors, at least on, like, the in, like, the Hollywood environment. Like, I would say that there's hundreds of indie filmmakers who probably have tried to recreate that style that I'm not aware of. But I think that generally in the film industry, his style is pretty unique. I really don't think his style is.
I would say that Guy Ritchie has a style that is somewhat similar. Like, not to a full extent, but I'd say, like, at least his dialogue and how he moves his camera, it definitely Wes Anderson vibes. Like, his last film, The Gentleman, it has the pacing of a Wes Anderson movie. It's a lot more raw and a lot more violence and all of that, but it definitely has, like, the dialogue, pacing, and whip pans of a Wes Anderson movie. Also, I think, like, films like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World definitely have, like, a Wes Anderson vibe to it, especially because it's, like, very surreal, I guess, is the kind of, it's a formalist film. Or even, like, films by Taika Waititi, like Jojo Rabbit, I don't know if you've seen that. Or even, like, Thor Ragnarok. Are just films where I feel like the color is very much like a Wes Anderson film. The sets are very colorful, the costumes like, repel off of the set. But yeah, I think a lot of directors wouldn't want to mimic his style because, I mean, everyone knows Wes Anderson's style, and they would get, they might get ridiculed if they'd
get called out.
Yeah.
I agree. I think Edgar Wright definitely has some qualities. But I mean, also then you get films like Baby Driver, which bear almost no resemblance to anything Wes Anderson's ever done.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah. And I also don't know if any director would have that stylized, like, make films that stylized and just stick with it for everything they've done. I think a lot of directors make a lot of different films in a way.
Yeah.
So I don't think his style is. I think his style is pretty unique.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break here, and then we will hop into story and
Sure.
originality. Okay, we're back, hopping into the actual
Back at
review of The Life Aquatic with
Yeah.
Steve Zissou, hopping into story and originality out of 10.
Yeah. In my opinion, this is like the ultimate Wes Anderson like adventure mixed with like character study film. Like to me this story fits the Wes Anderson style the best. At least from like a dialogue perspective and a character perspective. Cuz he has like very childish qualities in his adult characters and vice versa, and obviously the deadpan delivery, and to me this is just a perfect story for that kind of character, with the character of Steve Zissou, just this very washed up man, who has a very tough love life, and just not a lot of friends and no son, and then this shark eating his best friend Esteban propels him into this adventure where he really just learns a lot about, he really just comes to terms with himself and kind of his career and the fact that he is a jerk, and he's not a very good person pretty much. And he doesn't necessarily grow and become an amazing person. He just kind of acknowledges, at the start of the film, he's just very unaware, I guess, of his position. And by the end, he just kind of acknowledges where he is in his life and, the mistakes he's made. And he doesn't necessarily become a great person, but I mean, really, this is just the story of being able to reconcile with whatever you've, hardships or whatever that you've done wrong, and just kind of understand that. And I mean, like the shark, like we said, is kind of like a secondary story point to just him growing as a human being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I thought this was a very original screenplay. Like, it's nothing I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
I mean, the character Steve Zissou is interesting, but I do feel like it does play along the very stereotypical hero's journey kind of vibe. Like, you start off with your character kind of down in the dumps, lost his spark, meets a girl, or he meets someone that brings him back, which is either Cate Blanchett or also his son, Owen Wilson. And then you kind of just follow him on this journey, and the journey's different, but ultimately we get to the same point. I would have liked them to go a little deeper in his character. I guess that's my biggest complaint. I would have just wanted a bit of a deeper study into his character. That being said, this film gets massive points for originality, in my opinion, because the overall just vibe of the film, the look of the film, and, just the overall, like, concept is very original. And the story is entertaining enough for me. Like, I mean, yes, it does have pacing issues at some point, but the overall just story, I enjoyed quite a bit. I had fun watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to me, like, I think his character, you definitely get little hints of like a backstory, or when he's talking to his son about not wanting to be a father because he hates fathers, just little implications like that about his childhood or past events in his life. I mean, like there is backstory. I mean, you kind of have to piece it together yourself. and yeah, I can see that his character isn't necessarily the most fleshed out, but I just really love, like, yes, this also might be a bit of a stereotypical hero's journey, but I mean, I personally just love the journey. I love the ride that this film takes you on, and I just love all the characters and just making this ensemble documentary team, off on an adventure on the seas. Like, to me, that's just such a unique concept, and just a great concept that I love, of just having, a team of they're not, the most professional, but they're just literally off on an adventure. Like, it's just a nice adventure film, in my opinion, and I love it.
Okay. Well, I gave it an 8 out of 10. Yeah. What'd you give it?
I gave it a 9% out of 10.
Okay.
I don't think it's perfect, but I really do love the story.
See, I was expecting...
I think it's very, very original.
I was expecting full marks from you, so okay.
I could give it full marks, and I honestly, I feel like I should have, but I just feel like I'd get too much criticism, because, yeah, there are some issues with the story, and I'll acknowledge that.
Okay, moving on to the beginning of the film, out of 5.
I think that this is a very hit or miss beginning, and I wouldn't be surprised if you hated it. But I absolutely love the beginning of this film, and I know that that's a controversial opinion. Like, I think that the intro honestly loses people, just in the way it's set up. But I just think that the introduction of kind of the backstory of the adventure is just awesome. Like, I love the spoof documentary they made, that sets up, like, the basis of the film. Like, to me, that just kind of shows you what you're about to see, pretty much. You see all the characters, and you're like, okay, this is gonna be a rough film. It's gonna be edited harshly. It's not gonna be, you're not meant to take it very seriously. Like, to me, the opening little spoof documentary and the Q&A session, it's just a hilarious scene. And you just get to know the characters so well, and I don't know. To me, I just love the opening to this film. I think it's a great opening.
Yeah, I think you're underestimating my level of pretentiousness. I enjoyed the beginning of this film.
It's not even a question of pretentiousness. I just think that the spoof documentary kind of loses people, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I can definitely see how you could not like the beginning of this film.
I love mockumentaries, Ben. You should know that about me. The beginning of this film, like the opening documentary, I was dying laughing. Like, that was the funniest part of the whole movie for me. Like, I mean, okay. I will say that I found the beginning to be a little bit rushed. I felt like everything that just happened too quickly. That's my only complaint, though. I think that overall the setup is really good. We get to know all the characters really quickly, which adds a lot to the entertainment value. I found the opening very entertaining. I thought that the opening documentary was hilarious. I mean, it looks nice. It's like the wide angle lens looks really nice in the audience, and shooting the Q&A session.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing for me in the beginning is that I just felt like we got rushed into it a little too quickly. I'm fine with starting with the mockumentary, but then just build it a little bit nicer. It felt like we just were introduced to too many characters at once, and then I was kind of losing track of things. But overall, I think it's a really great start of a film.
Yeah. So I gave the beginning full marks.
Wow.
Because,
okay.
I mean, in terms of setup, it's just a very unique setup, hilarious setup, and I love it.
Yeah, I give it a 4 out of 5. I still really enjoyed it. Okay, let's move on to ending. Out of 5. I already gave you a taste of my thoughts on the ending.
Yeah.
Let's just say I think that the submarine scene is fantastic. It was beautiful. It hits you in the feels. It's a really great ending point for Bill Murray's character. And this film,
Yeah.
it overstays its welcome for me about 3 minutes. About 3 minutes too long. And I get that you like the premiere at the end, and I get that you like the ending credits, but you can still do that with still sort of ending with the submarine. We go from the submarine, and then we kind of have like this pretty, just this conversation with him and Klaus's nephew, and it's just like unnecessary. I feel like, you know what we could have even ended with? You end with cutting to the premiere and his empty seat, and then you can still have the ending credits with the Bowie song. But I feel like that even would have been a more impactful ending.
Yeah, I mean, to me, everything that happens after the submarine just kind of is almost like a part of the credits for me. Like, I agree with you that it doesn't need to be there, but to me, it doesn't really make the ending any worse. Like,
okay,
I get my tears out.
Bro, okay, but like, you say that it's like the ending credits, but it's not. It's not the ending credits.
Well,
it's
obviously
still
the premiere stuff is. Like, yeah, I mean, it cuts to the premiere, it cuts to his empty seat, he has a little conversation with the nephew, and then he starts walking, and that's the ending credits. Like,
yeah. Well, yeah, the walking is the ending credits, not all the other stuff.
I mean, his conversation with Klaus's nephew is... I don't think... Yeah, to me, that's not a bad thing. I get my tears out. I love the ending scene. I guess not the ending scene in the submarine. And then, boom, epic Bowie song, slow-mo credits. What's not to love, in my opinion?
See, I wanted a more emotional ending. Something that hit like, boom, end. Which is how I like all my endings.
Fair enough. I mean, for me, it's like a boom, I cry, gorgeous scene, and then Wes Anderson stylized outro. Like, I love the ending to this film. Makes me cry every time. My favorite Bowie song playing during the credits. Yeah, I mean, even the stuff leading up to the submarine is just amazing. I mean, I love the choice to kill off Ned Plimpton. It makes for a very emotional funeral at sea.
Yeah, I love the shot of his casket falling into the water, and you see Angelica Houston laying there looking out the window. I mean,
And I also really love the scene of the helicopter crashing, too.
Yeah.
I think it's done very well. So, for me, the ending is also full marks, 5% out of 5. Yeah.
Okay. I think I have to start being more biased. I gave it a 4 out of 5. No, like, think about it. Like, I gave Children of Men, my all-time favorite movie, a lower score than you gave it.
I mean, yeah, that's true. I think I'm just a nicer human being than you, and that's what it boils down to.
Or I just have to, like, tune into my bias.
I think the only difference we had in that entire review was the acting.
0.5.
It's because I thought the acting was better.
Yeah, but even the master, like, I don't know. I gotta add some bias. I gotta tune into my bias. But, like, yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. I still really enjoyed this ending. Hit me in the feels.
Yeah.
Would have been full marks for me if they had just ended 2 minutes earlier. But, yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay. It's screenplay and dialogue time. Out of 8%. I think this is our first Noah Baumbach screenplay. One of my favorite writers of all time. I'd say he's like a top 3 writer for me.
Yes, I love Noah Baumbach.
I love Noah Baumbach. And, I mean, this is just a legendary collab. I don't know. To me, I think all the characters that are aboard are just really well written. and yeah, they might not be as fleshed out as some people might like, but I mean, to me, I still think that there's a lot of emotional weight and development for each character to have. I mean, I would even argue that Cate Blanchett's character is a very solidly written character that changes, and has a nice arc, and has some good backstory too. So, I mean, yeah. What are your thoughts on this? Because I'm interested.
I think that all the characters were well enough, but I felt like they were all kind of just scratching the surface. Like, there were so many things we could have got way deeper into all of the characters. I mean, personally, I think that the most interesting character development in this film was Angelica Houston. Her whole plot point of basically leaving, not wanting Owen Wilson, not wanting a son, and then like her overall change over time, and then being able to accept him, and then him dying, and then that shot of her watching his casket fall into the ocean. Like, she's not in a lot of the movie, but that was a character development I really enjoyed. Whereas the rest of the characters, it's like, yes, you get hints of their background, but like, I needed more. And this film's only an hour and 40 minutes. It could have gave me more, you know? Could have rounded up to 2 hours and given me like a little bit more of each character and just a bit more backstory. I would have liked more backstory on Cate Blanchett. A lot of stuff is happening to her, and then we never really figure out what was happening to her. Anyways, I gave Screenplay and Dialogue a 6 out of 8. I should mention that the dialogue in this film is really great, and that's what's boosting the score up for me. Because there's some just... I mean, I love Wes Anderson dialogue in general. Yeah,
I think that... Yeah, I gave it a 7% out of 8. Not perfect, but I really love the screenplay and the dialogue. Yeah, I really love it. Now, let's move on to soundtrack. Oh, baby. This soundtrack... Can I just say, this is the only soundtrack almost ever that I've legitimately listened to multiple times in the car, just, like, actually listen to the soundtrack. And actually, there's a lot of Wes Anderson soundtracks that I have listened to, because this man just has amazing soundtracks, whether it's a score or a soundtrack.
Okay, here's the thing about the soundtrack for me. Okay? I love Life on Mars, one of my all-time favorite songs. Okay? But pretty much all the other songs are sang on an acoustic guitar in Portuguese. They're great songs. They're great songs. No, they're great songs. But I would never listen to that version. I would only listen to the original version.
I have literally listened to all of those versions because I love them.
You've listened to the guy singing Space Odyssey on his... What? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, fair. If you listen to that, that is perfectly fine.
I listened to that. I'm not lying. You can add... Like, I'm not lying. I have listened to that.
Bro.
And also, Mark Mothersbaugh, I absolutely love his... Like, I understand that it's, like, kind of weird electronic music, but I like that stuff, too. I think Mark Mothersbaugh is a great musician. He's also in Devo, for those who don't know. That's a band. He did the music for this... Basically, all the original music that was done is Mark Mothersbaugh. And I really like the Ping Island theme song. Is great. Like, to me, this is just a top soundtrack of all time for me. This soundtrack goes beyond the film and just stands out to me as one of the only soundtracks that I've genuinely listened to multiple times as like a collection of songs. So I'm giving it 8% out of 7.
Okay. I mean, that is fair. That is totally fair.
That's a rare score. Like, that's never going to happen again. Because this is genuinely... I love all the songs.
I have movies in my head right now that I know that if we land on it on the wheel, I will give it an 807 because there's scores that I listen to, like, all the time. And this is one for you. Personally, I can't see myself revisiting the soundtrack just because most of them are covers. I mean,
Fair
and
enough.
like, I like this soundtrack, okay? It's just not, it's very close. It's very close to full marks. Just not quite there for me. 6 out of 7.
Fair enough.
But it's close.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll
production-
respect that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Production design,
Okay,
costumes, and
production
set.
design, costume sets. Bro, this one's easy for me. This is a great category for any Wes Anderson movie. Costumes are so prominent
Yeah.
in their colors. The production
The
design
costumes
is
are-
immaculate.
Awesome.
I mean, I will state that
And-
compared to other Wes Anderson films, it's not as crazy, but just the
Yeah.
ship in itself, you can't give it any less than full marks. I mean, the amount of work that we've gone
come
into,
on.
like,
come
creating
on.
that ship, like, in order to
Creating
do
the
those
set.
long takes and the
The-
camera movement
yeah.
throughout that ship,
Oh,
even if there's some bad hidden cuts, I will give it full marks. I don't even think there's much to say. It's full marks.
yeah.
Production design.
And
I mean,
Milena Canonero on the costumes. I mean, she's a long-time Wes Anderson collaborator. Well, actually, this was the first time that she collaborated with him, but she also did Moonrise Kingdom and The Grand Budapest Hotel. She just makes phenomenal costumes. And the set design, too, is really, really strong on the ship. I mean, they really just gave so much personality to the boat. And, yeah, full marks. Anything less would be a crime on Wes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
and also Captain Hennessy's like research lab and
Yeah.
all his costumes and his boat too. Like,
Yeah. Production design is great, you know? And also, like, the underwater scenes. Because it's, like, it's very weird looking, but that's all a set, obviously, too.
yeah, I really like the diving scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that scene actually. It's great. Yeah, production
Okay.
design, full marks, easy.
Moving on to location selection. I think location selection is good in this movie. I think it picks up in the second half. Just, I don't know. I probably shouldn't be doing this, but as I was watching this movie, I was comparing it to a lot of Wes Anderson, all of his other work. And it's just
Right.
not as prominent, in my opinion. I mean, there's some good locations, but there's also some that are just, like, very bland, in my opinion. Like, you know, there's a scene where, like, the scene where he's just talking with Owen Wilson and Angelica Houston. They're literally just standing at a doorway with two white posts just to get that, like, perspective, but it really isn't that interesting of locations. Little things like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think that this film has some really great locations, like the Italian town that they dock at while they're chasing the... Or actually, I mean, it's not Italian. I don't know where it is, but there's just some very, like, very big extreme wide shots, and the shot of Angelica Houston on the balcony with, like, the big landscape in the background that are really beautiful. And also the theater where they screen it. There are some great shots there. But and honestly, Ping Island too. Like, I really like that tropical island, but also, like, rainy and very earthy feel that it has with the abandoned hotel. I really like that location too. But I'll agree with you. I don't think it's a perfect... yeah. And also because a lot of this film is just filmed on the ship. So there's not many other places that they go. Not that that's a bad thing, because, I mean, I love the ship, but I'm not giving it full marks. I'm giving it a 5% out of 6 for location selection.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 4 out of 6. It's a high 4, but I felt like it was just above average for me. I was kind of underwhelmed by the location selection, not gonna lie. I wanted some more beautiful bokeh lights, you know? I wasn't getting it. Needed a bit more.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There's not a lot of bokeh in this film, and I think that's fine for, like,
I'm
the
gonna
ship.
talk about cinematography. But there were so many chances for some nice bokeh. They just didn't do it. And I was like,
That's just not Wes Anderson, dude.
No.
None of Wes
But,
Anderson
like,
films have bokeh.
Yeah, but like that jellyfish scene, you just get a bit more depth of field. It would have been so beautiful. I don't know. That annoyed
I
me.
mean, fair and okay, but like, I would rather be able to focus my eyes and look at the jellyfish than just have them be blips of light.
No, you can still have shots
No,
of them, but like the medium
Don't
close-ups
get
of
me
people
wrong, I love
talking.
bokeh too, but I think that Wes Anderson films are good without the bokeh of other films.
Okay.
Just because he has so much detail in the sets, like I don't know, I like looking at them.
Okay, well, let's
okay.
take a quick break, and then we will
Yeah.
hop into cinematography.
All right.
Okay, heading into cinematography.
Yeah.
Out of 10.
Like,
Let's hear your
I'm gonna
stuff.
okay. I'm gonna get this out of the way. Like, Wes Anderson does not have like the most, like, I don't know, traditionally beautiful, like, cinematic style. He's not out here getting these like crazy beautiful shots, all right? But I think that in this film, and his earlier work in general, these really wide shots, like in the opening scene of the theater, just kind of prove that he can get those very like grand cinematic shots. Like, even if the depth of field isn't that shallow, you know, he can have these big boy shots, and still kind of kick it with the bigger films. And I also want to get out of the way that I absolutely love the framing in this film, and just the way he puts characters while they're talking to each other in scenes, because I like, most of the time, you know, he's got some creative way of staging or blocking the characters so that there's a lot of depth during their conversation. Like, he'll have someone talking through like a cutout window while they're in another room, and just really using that boat set greatly to have some tracking shots too while the people are talking. And I really just think that the amount of camera movement Wes uses here, whether it's handheld or on an arm, the camera just moves quite a bit, which is, you know, common for a Wes Anderson film. But it really just makes all the shots that much more engaging. Like, even if it's just like a little bit of movement, it just makes all the shots a little bit more nice to look at. And also all the things happening in the background of shots add to that kind of point, which is another thing that's common in Wes's films, is just having stuff happening in the background while characters are talking. And there are even some times where he'll use like the camera movement to produce an entirely new MCU without cutting. Like, you know, he'll be filming two characters from one angle, and then he'll move the camera and break the 180 rule just to have a new angle, but without actually cutting. And I love that, because I just think that's a great alternative to just cutting to a different shot. And overall, I just think that this film is shot very, very well. It's not the most traditionally beautiful, not a lot of bokeh, but I really think it's shot well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think this is like one of the worst shot Wes Anderson films, in my opinion.
I mean, fair enough. Like, I think that I would almost agree, just because I think all his other films are shot amazingly.
Yeah, like, yes, Moonrise Kingdom is your least favorite Wes Anderson film, sure, but you can't argue that Moonrise Kingdom doesn't look nicer. I mean,
I'm not
composition
saying that. I'm not.
And the colors, and like, you know, Royal Tenenbaums, which he did before Life Aquatic, is just such a good looking film. I mean, Rushmore, and I haven't seen the Darjeeling Limited, but I've heard that Rushmore. Well, I love Rushmore, but I heard that film also has a kind of similar style to Life Aquatic in just the like more gritty.
I mean, the Darjeeling Limited is much more beautiful than this film, because it's shot in India and just has very vivid colors and really grand landscapes.
Right.
The Darjeeling Limited is a much more beautiful film. I think the Darjeeling Limited is shot amazingly, because it's just very vibrant. You know, there's like a lot of cool blues and stuff. I don't know. You should watch.
Yeah. Personally, the thing I don't like about the cinematography in this film is, first of all, depth of field. I get it. And I'm fine with having lots of shots with widescreen angle. I mean, not widescreen angle, but wide angle lens. It looks nice. I mean, they're great. But when you're shooting a medium close-up with a bunch of lights in the background, just turn up the aperture and get that bokeh. I mean, that shot with all the jellyfish. Do you know how beautiful that would have been if they had just added some depth of field? All the different colored jellyfish. It would have been gorgeous. And I was watching it and I was like, why? I was so mad.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that the exception to bokeh is Wes Anderson, just because of all the things he places in the backgrounds of his shots. Like, I get that there are some shots in this film where the background is just a wall, but I think in general, stuff happening in the background kind of negates bokeh to make a shot look...
But with the jellyfish, nothing was happening in the background. There were just a bunch of jellyfish on the ground, and you could set that up with a wide shot, and then in your medium close-ups, just have some bokeh.
I mean, also the mediums in that scene aren't really mediums. It's kind of wide the entire scene, like knee up.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, other thing in this film, I like handheld, but when you're switching between Wes Anderson style to handheld, it's a little jarring in my opinion. You go from like that long take of showing his ship, right? And you got the half-cut ship, and you go through it, and it's really well done. Great camera movement. You see the set, and then you cut to like a conversation between him and Owen Wilson that's handheld. It's very random, and it just doesn't feel like it belongs in a Wes Anderson movie. I will say that as the movie goes along, his style becomes a lot more prominent. It almost feels like halfway through this movie, he started to just like understand his style a bit more. Because the start of this film, I wasn't getting major Wes Anderson vibes. But as it moved along, it started to feel like he was like picking up on his style, and then all of a sudden it felt way more like Wes Anderson movie. I mean, the camera movement is great, and I really like the boat scenes. I just didn't... I wasn't extremely impressed by the cinematography, but I think what's raising the grade up for me is the camera movement, and just that like the tracking shots of them running and stuff.
Yeah. I give it a 9% out of 10.
Oh my god. Okay. Wow. Then what would you give like the Grand Budapest Hotel then? If this is a 9.
I'd probably give the Grand Budapest like a 9 or 10.
You would give it the same score?
Yeah.
Damn.
I don't think that this film is that different from his other films in terms of like cinematic quality, especially to something like Rushmore, or even the Darjeeling Limited. Like, I don't think that this film is that worsely shot. Like, I don't think it's his best shot, but I don't see really the lack of cinematic style or whatever with this film. I think that it is still a stylized Wes Anderson film.
Okay. I gave it a 7 out of 10 for cinematography. Still liked it. There are just some scenes I was like, it's just not very nice looking. like especially the scene where he fights off the pirates.
Damn, really? I like the look of that scene. Because it's not...
It looks like a home video.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a Wes Anderson action scene, dude. It's not like it's not meant to be like an action scene, if that makes sense, you know? It's not like meant to be this thrilling action scene. It's almost like a comedic... It's like a comedic scene.
Yeah, I know that. I'm aware of that. But you throw the camera on a stabilizer and all of a sudden the scene just looks a little bit more professional. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, it's an intense scene. You gotta get handheld for those intense scenes.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Okay. I get it. It's comedic irony. I get it. Okay, it just doesn't add points for me with cinematography. Okay, let's move into editing. I have to warn you, I am going to attack the editing in this film a little bit.
Yeah, I think that the editing is probably the weakest category in the whole film. I still like it. I think that the good kind of outweighs the bad. I think the good outweighs the bad, but the bad is still there, and you have to acknowledge it, even if you're a Wes Anderson fan, because there are some very strange cuts. Like, I'm not talking, like, I'd say a majority of this film is cut pretty solidly, but there are some scenes where they'll cut, like very similar shots back to back, and it just kind of looks weird. Like, the cut from a shot of Bill Murray, like, to a different shot of Bill Murray type thing. And the angle won't change that much. And it's just, like, it's a little jarring in those cases. And there are continuity errors also. I'd say the biggest one would be near the start, after they order at the restaurant scene. Bill Murray's, like, sipping his wine, and then it just... he orders the wine and says, pour it over here, like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And then it literally cuts to, like, the same angle of him drinking the wine. Like he literally, like, teleports the wine into his hand and starts drinking it. I don't know. I just feel like when you have a professional film team looking at that and you watch the film over and over again, like, how does that slip by you and you're like, yo, that looks good. But, like, that's kind of the harshness out of the way for me, because I think that the rest of the cuts between scenes that are, like, harsh and jarring are actually really pleasing for me and just add to kind of the documentary aesthetic of the film. Because at the end of the day, this film is supposed to be shot and edited like a mockumentary, because it is pretty much. Like, you're not necessarily seeing it through the actual lens of, Vikram filming it. Like, it's not a true mockumentary, but Wes Anderson is shooting it and editing it purposely, not bad, but, like, purposely amateur at some points to, get across that style, because that's what he's going for. And he has said this, like, some of the amateur moments are kind of on purpose, if that makes sense.
Okay, sure.
And I also think that some of these harsh edits just add for some really comedic moments, like, say, the cut from them all training and Ned doing his dive to just harsh cut to him getting CPR. Like stuff like that is just a prime example of that harsh editing making me laugh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't mind that kind of editing. I just don't like continuity errors, and I don't like lazy editing. Big ones for me, all the long takes in the ships. There's a lot of quote-unquote hidden cuts that are very visible. They didn't even try and hide them. It's like they go past a wall and then they jump cut. And they didn't even try to match the wall to each other to make it look like one continuous shot. It kind of jumps like a frame. Like, just that happens so many times in the movie. Especially in the argument scene between Steve and Ned, when they're walking through the boat and it's supposed to look like this one continuous shot. I counted like 5 hidden cuts that were blatantly obvious. And then there's some continuity errors. Big one for me was they're sitting on the hot air balloon, Cate Blanchett and Bill Murray. Yeah. And the sun just keeps changing location. Like, the sun just... Yeah. It's like 1 second it's up here, and then it's down here. Lighting's all different in each shot.
Although I do like that scene.
Yeah. It's just not edited well.
Fair enough.
And then the big thing for me with the editing was, I know you didn't hear this, but I thought the sound was really bad. Especially the mixing, like, between the Foley work and the dialogue. It just wasn't very good. And also, whenever I'm watching a movie and I have to actually grab the remote to turn down the audio when there's music, that means it's not mixed very well. Because I was watching this and my dad was asleep, so I don't want to wake him up. And I have to turn up the volume to listen to the dialogue because I can't really hear it. But then all of a sudden music comes in and I have to turn down the volume because it's way too loud. I mean, that's just a editing thing. You just have to make sure that everything stays on the same sort of volume and nothing is blasted over the top.
Although I do think Wes kind of blasted the David Bowie because he likes it. Like, I'm not saying that
but you can
is an excuse, but I think he.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Anyways, I can't give this film more than an average rating, in my opinion. It's a 4 out of 8, right smack in the middle. I do enjoy some of the editing choices, and it is solid for most of the film. There's just, one too many continuity errors for me, and just some overall a little bit lazy editing, in my opinion. Yeah, 4 out of 8.
Yeah, I don't know if this is... I mean, it is biased at the end of the day, because I love this film. And I guess once I've seen it a few times, I don't know if it's just because I was watching it with headphones on. The audio mixing just wasn't really an issue for me while I was watching it. I didn't really notice that. And I just really like the documentary style look to a lot of these scenes. But yeah, still, I gave it a 6% out of 8. Well above average, but still not kind of breaking that good or excellent level. I think that this film is stylistically edited very well, but technically not as well, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So yeah, 6%.
Fair enough.
Out of 8. Let's move on to acting now. Out of 10%. I love this cast. I'm not even going to talk about the acting yet. But I think that this cast is legendary. Got some of my favorite actors of all time in this cast. And yes, I do love Owen Wilson. I don't understand his hate. Well, I kind of understand it. But from my perspective, I just think he's a good actor. I like Owen Wilson. Stop hating on Owen Wilson.
Fair enough.
He's had some questionable roles, but he's had some questionable roles, but Wedding Crashers or Marley
don't
and
hate
Me.
on Wedding Crashers.
Can I hate on
Wedding
Marley
Crashers
and Me?
is I've never seen Marley and Me because I am genuinely way too scared to watch that movie.
Scared?
Bro, I do not want to watch a dog get euthanized. Straight up. I can watch grotesque things, but the second a dog dies, I can't watch that. Bro, I was hurting when they abandoned freaking what's his name in this movie on the pirate island.
Cody.
Yeah, I was like, no, not the dog. I couldn't care less when Owen Wilson died, but you leave the dog on the island. I was like,
they didn't leave the dog to die. They left him to be, his original owners take him back.
Yeah, but the pirates were probably all mostly dead. I guarantee you they didn't treat that dog very well.
Fair enough. Yeah. I'm sad too. And Bill Murray's sad too. He wants to go back, but everybody's like, no.
Yeah, I know. A bunch of...
Yeah. Now, on to acting. I think that this is an incredible cast, and they deliver. Honestly, in terms of weak performances, I would say Bill Murray and Owen Wilson give the two weakest performances. Not that they give weak performances, but just relative to everybody else. I think that Willem Dafoe is the standout. Willem Dafoe and Angelica Houston and Cate Blanchett are my three favorite performances.
Dafoe so much.
Willem Dafoe is precious.
It's so good.
I
it's
love him in
nothing like
everything
he
he's
usually
in.
does.
Yeah, exactly. He's
usually the
bad guy.
He's usually the bad guy or the really just cool
I mean,
Dude, in this one he's like this childish adult.
Yeah,
I love it.
He's so good. And I love Angelica Houston's performance in this. I love Cate Blanchett's performance in this. I'm normally not that much of a Cate Blanchett fan. Cate Blanchett. There we go.
Cate Blanchett is a fantastic actress in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan of her. I don't know, in like the Lord of the Rings, but I don't know. I didn't really like Thor Ragnarok or Ocean's 8 personally.
Man, really just said Lord of the Rings is his favorite Cate Blanchett.
No, I didn't say that's my favorite. I'm just naming Cate Blanchett.
Okay.
Like even The Aviator is, like, I don't know. Cate Blanchett's an awesome actress, and I love her performance here. She did this in The Aviator same year.
Yeah.
I really love all the performances, and I think Bill Murray. I love Bill Murray, but him and Owen Wilson, just because they were the most deadpan, like, gave the worst performances. But I mean, their performances are still very, very strong. I would say Owen Wilson's is probably less strong than Bill Murray's.
Yeah,
but
like,
I mean,
I didn't feel like there was a bad performance in this film. It all was solid. Everyone is able to do the Wes Anderson dialogue really nicely. I mean, some Wes Anderson films you get where there's some supporting characters that just don't, fully know how to do his dialogue. In this film, there was none of that. He cast all very strong actors who delivered his dialogue.
I mean, Jeff
perfectly.
Goldblum. This is a star-studded cast. Maybe not star-studded, but just
Wes Anderson star-studded.
Exactly, Wes Anderson star-studded. All it needs is Tilda Swinton, Jason Schwartzman, Adrian Brody,
and
Ed Norton.
Yeah,
and
maybe Luke Wilson also.
Yeah, I love Luke Wilson, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I love him in Wes Anderson films.
Yeah, anyways, I'm not going to talk much longer. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 for acting. I'm not going to give it full marks just because there was no, moments where the acting was, insanely good, in my opinion. But, there were no moments where it was bad. So, 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm giving it full marks. Just that's my bias coming through again. But honestly, this cast, it's just so amazing to me that all these actors are in the same film. And that just the dynamics they have with the Wes Anderson dialogue. Like, Angelica Houston and Bill Murray's dialogue together is just... that is such a beautiful dynamic. Well, it's not beautiful, but it's just hilarious anytime they're on screen together. And I laugh so much throughout this film, and a lot of it is less to do with the writing and more to do with the acting and just the great deliveries of these lines, especially close. So, yeah, I'm giving it full marks. It's a bit on the lower side. I would argue, Good Will Hunting is obviously a very, almost perfect, but this is still full marks for me.
Okay. Entertainment value out of 10. I'm assuming you're giving this full marks right away since it's your favorite movie ever.
Well,
wow, okay.
I mean, I don't know. What should I be giving it full marks? Do you want me to give it full marks? I can give it full marks.
No, I don't want you to give it full marks.
I'm not giving it full marks.
Okay, here's the thing. This film has pacing issues. We're not going to lie about it. It definitely has pacing issues.
Yeah,
but the dialogue is still funny enough that I don't mind it. I still enjoyed this movie. The movie isn't super long, so you're able to sit through it and enjoy it. Only an hour and 40 minutes. Which it lost points for me because of that for screenplay, but for entertainment value, it's all good. It's just a quirky film. It's fun. It has a lot of heart, and that's something I haven't said yet in this podcast. This film has a lot of heart. And even though maybe, in my opinion, it's not a perfect film, it definitely has some issues. The basis of this film is very heartfelt, very emotional, and I really, really thought the ending was great payoff. But yeah, there's some slower moments. There are a few moments, I'm not going to lie, I was a little bored. But overall, it was a fun watch. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, this film is just like, in my opinion, just a great blend of comedy, drama, and action. Like, yes, the action is a bit cheesy, but I mean, it's supposed to be, but you get the lightning strike rescue scene and the pirate hijacking scene, but you also get those, like, slower scenes between Owen Wilson and Kate Blanchett that are, more on the sad side, and also the comedic scenes with Klaus in it. Like, this film is just hilarious, but it also makes me cry. I laugh and cry. It's just a great watch. And obviously it is my favorite film. I just can't give it full marks because, like, at the end of the day, there just are some scenes that don't really need to be there. Like, I love them, but I was looking at this and I was like, yo, I could so give this full marks, but then I was like, but it would just be a lie. So yeah, I gave it a 9% out of 10. High 9, but yeah, not full marks, sadly. I wish I could, without the backlash.
I give it an 8 out of 10. Still very high for me. 8 out of 10. Let's move on to overall technical achievement.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I don't know. It's like, I just don't think that this film on technical level is that impressive, especially because I just think all of Wes Anderson movies are more impressive, technically speaking. I think this film is holding up for me personally more due to the screenplay, the characters, the acting, and just the overall, concept. But the technical aspects of this film, I mean, there's some cool shots, but other than that, I just don't think it's that impressive, in my opinion. But averaging out my scores, looking at it, it's about a 4-point under kind of situation here. I'm giving it an 11 out of 15 for technical achievement.
Yeah, I mean, like, all things considered, I scored cinematography very high and editing decently. But I think, technically speaking, I agree with you. It's not, it just isn't, like, the most technically impressive film out there. And I understand that. Like, I think a lot of my scores, like, yes, they're biased, but at the end of the day, like, I do understand that when you look at this film and judge it, like, on a rating scale like this, where you're really just judging individual categories, like, it's not going to score the highest. Like, this can be my favorite film, and it will still, score lower than other films we've watched so far. Because, yeah, I understand that, technically speaking, it's not even close to Children of Men or anything like that, so with pain in my heart, I gave it a 12% out of 15. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not gonna lie to myself.
See, I was expecting you to give that whole speech and then be like, but you know what? I'm still gonna give it full marks.
No, I mean,
that's what I was expecting.
Like, I don't know. I just think that with this ratings we have, I can't lie to myself and cheat this film to be like a 99%. But with that being said, I think that this film is an absolute masterpiece, and it is my favorite film of all time. Even if it's not ranked, even if it doesn't score higher on this scale than other films. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so let's take a quick break. We're going to come back with our total scores, our average score, and then we're going to spin the wheel, see what we're doing next week. And we have a little thing we got to announce, an episode that's coming out later this week.
A fun announcement, yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, we are back, and we've tallied up our total percentages. I have a feeling there's going to be a fair bit of difference between them. But
Lucas may be a hater, but this is my favorite of all time, no question. Although it did score lower than some other films we've watched so far, mainly because of the technical aspects. I gave it a 91% overall. I think I kept my bias decently in check, but it still shone through at some moments. Yeah, 91%, tied with The Master.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. This movie... Okay. Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's your favorite movie of all time. What could we expect?
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I gave it a 77%. So, tied with Where the Wild Things Are.
Damn. I feel like that is a hate crime.
Yeah. Hey. Where the Wild Things Are is
Sucked.
technically very impressive.
Yeah, sure.
They're like the opposite films, in my opinion. Life Aquatic, great story, not as good technically. Where the Wild Things Are, not a great story, but really good technically. I mean, they switch off for me.
Fair enough. When you average out our scores, you get an 84%, so exactly the same as Brazil. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So, I guess because they're tied, we look at the lowest score. Brazil has a lower score. Okay, so that means The Life Aquatic is in 8th place overall out of our 14 films.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad that it didn't pass The Place Beyond the Pines. I know. I'm a little biased with The Place Beyond the Pines, but
I like The Place Beyond the Pines, but I mean, this film just means more to me than The Place Beyond the Pines. Like, this film is just in
fair.
my heart. Yeah. I watched it a long time ago. I've watched it a lot of times. It's just my favorite. Yeah, so with all my bias out, I'm pretty happy with where it is. I didn't really expect you to like it that much, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
I liked it more than I thought. I mean, going into this film, looking at a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes, I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. Let's just say that.
Let's spin that wheel and see what we're doing for next week. Hopefully more Wes Anderson films.
Okay, yeah. Let's see what we're doing. I got QuickTime Player up. Yeah, okay, let's spin. We are going to be spinning in 3, 2, 1. Yes! Nice! Oh, yes!
Oh, I'm scared. What is it?
We've landed on I'm thinking of ending things.
Oh, this is so perfect. Right with the Oscar nominations, too. Oh, my God.
Bro,
oh,
it was so close to not landing on it. Like, so close. And it just tilted.
So it was almost
I'm so happy.
Oh, my God. This film...
Okay, so... background on why we're so happy about this. Basically, Ben and I made this podcast because of that movie.
Yeah.
It's a movie we've just wanted to talk about for a long time.
It's like you could
so
talk about it for hours. I've seen it 3 times now, and it came out in September. Hyped to watch it a 4th time. Jesus. I'm
so happy.
I mean, I feel like I could do a whole podcast episode on it without even rewatching it. So rewatching it, I'm gonna be like ready for this because this film is fresh.
Yeah, I only watched it once because it came out in September, but I've been wanting to rewatch this like for a while, but I was like, okay, it might land on it, so I shouldn't rewatch it yet. So I'm really happy. Oh, I can't wait to rewatch this movie. I can't wait to talk about this movie. There's so much to analyze in this film. I mean, we could spend the entire hour of this podcast just analyzing it.
Yeah.
It's
a really incredible film. And our first film from this year, from last year, I guess, from 2020. This Oscar season.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of ties into our special announcement.
It does. You want to read a quick plot summary before we do that?
Yeah, sure. 1 second. Google. All right. Full of misgivings, a young woman travels with her boyfriend to her parents' secluded farm. Wow, I should have known that with a film this intricate that the plot summary would be very vague. But I mean, this is a Charlie Kaufman film. It is a mind It's a ride. It's an adventure. It'll make you think. It's definitely a film you gotta watch more than once to grasp.
Yes.
It's a very pretentious film. The audience
Totally.
the
100%.
audience rating is 2.4, with a majority of the ratings being 1 star. Literally, this film has like 50% 1-star ratings and 50% 5-star. People either love it or absolutely hate it. Like,
you
right
have to go into this movie being like,
yeah.
You have to go into this movie being like, yeah, I'm gonna watch. I have to think. You can't like casually view this movie, because it just won't work.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm great. Okay, let's give a little ad. This podcast episode will be coming out Monday, which is the day we will be recording our next episode, because the Academy Award nominations come out on Monday. And Ben and I have been prepping for this for a while now. We've been trying to watch as many like Oscar hyped movies as possible from 2020. And you know, we've been keeping track of all the award shows so far. And for the nominations, we're going to be doing an episode where we're going to, you know, talk about our favorite movies of 2020. We are going to predict what films we think are going to be nominated. And then we're going to do like a live reaction of us reading the nomination list.
Yeah.
So we'll be doing that on Monday. So we're going to try and have it out the next day, Tuesday. So, you know, this episode comes out on Monday, so hopefully it's to you by the next day. It's exciting. I mean, I'm excited to see what the Oscars do, who they snub, who they bring in.
I'm not gonna lie, with how it's looking from the Golden Globes, there's gonna be a lot more snubs than films I feel deserve to win. Yeah, I'm excited. That'll be out on Tuesday. But with that being said, that was our review of The Life Aquatic. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and we'll see you on Tuesday, and then we'll see you next week for our review of I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
Nice. Okay, see you guys. Thank you for listening to Slightly Qualified Film Students.
Make sure to tune in next week for a new film discussion and review.
Our theme song is Slightly Sexy by Thompson Springs.
Make sure to subscribe and leave us a like.
Send us feedback and comments, as well as your thoughts on the film. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at S_Q_F_S.
If you would like to send us a question or a comment for next week's episode, you can email us at sqfilmstudents@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.